You're 12, standing in a rowboat in a Maine cove, hauling a wooden trap up by hand while your grandfather counts the rope coming in over the rail. 30 years later, you sign the paper selling your lobstering business, boat, permits, and bait contracts for $410,000. Between those two moments sits a job the Bureau of Labor Statistics has ranked the deadliest in America for over a decade running, a fatality rate that lands somewhere around 100 deaths per 100,000 workers in a bad year, more than 20 times the national average across every other trade. A pound of lobster meat costs $40 at a Boston restaurant. The boat that hauled it out of the water got paid $5 a pound at the dock. This is every level of a commercial fisherman's career in America and what it actually costs to climb. If you like breakdowns of how careers actually progress, like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Level 1. The bait skiff. You're 12 and you make $0. Your grandfather runs 40 traps off a 14-foot skiff with a 2-stroke outboard that takes 3 pulls to start on a cold morning, and your job is the bait bag. Cut herring into chunks with a knife too big for your hand, jam the pieces into a mesh bag, and tie it with a slip knot he taught you in one afternoon, and you still get wrong half the time. He hauls the trap by hand, hand over hand, 40 feet of wet rope coiling at your feet while you stand clear of the coil so it doesn't take your ankle over the side with it when the trap catches bottom again. You measure the lobster's carapace with a brass gauge against the rules he recites without looking, 3¼ inches minimum, 5 inches maximum, throw back anything outside the line. You learn the V-notch, a mark cut into the tail of an egg-bearing female, and the rule that a notched female goes back in the water for the rest of her life, no matter her size, because she's already proven she can breed. Your hands are cut from herring scales and rope burn by lunchtime. You don't get paid, but at the end of the day, your grandfather lets you keep the culls, the small ones nobody will buy, and you sell them to a neighbor for $2 each. You start keeping a tally in a notebook instead of just handing over the bucket. The smell of bait never fully comes out of your jacket. None of it pays real money, and that's the problem. The skiff isn't enough anymore, so you take the only paid job a kid can get on this water, the stern of somebody else's boat. Level 2. The Sternman. You're 16 with your first real paycheck job, a 20% crew share on a 32-foot lobster boat with hydraulic hauler that pulls the trap up in 4 seconds flat. Nothing like the rope over rail hauling you learned as a kid. You band claws with a pair of pliers and a stack of thick rubber bands, one hand holding the lobster steady while the other snaps the band over the claw before it can find your thumb. You bait 500 traps a day, chunks of herring and menhaden packed into bags, your hands going numb in the cold before 9 in the morning. You stand at the rail while the captain runs the boat close to a buoy, gaffs it, feeds the warp line into the hauler, and you sort the catch the second the trap clears the water. Keepers in one tote, shorts and V-notched females straight back over the side without a second look. The captain, a man everyone on the dock calls Dutch, tells you the same thing every morning before you leave the harbor. Keep a hand on the rail or keep a hand on nothing at all. You learn what he means the first time a following sea lifts the stern and slides you 4 feet across the deck on your back, and you come up laughing because nothing broke, but you never forget to hold on again. You clear $800 in a good week during the summer run, and you don't clear enough to matter in a bad one, because a sternman's pay is a percentage of somebody else's boat, somebody else's fuel bill, somebody else's bad day. You start to notice you're doing the same math every season. The boat makes the real money, and you make a fraction of it. You want your own gear in the water, but you can't fish a single trap in this state without a license, and the license isn't for sale. It has to be earned. Level 3. The Apprentice. You're 19 and you sign the logbook that starts the clock on Maine's commercial lobster apprenticeship program. 1,000 hours of documented time on a licensed boat spread across at least 2 years before the state will even let you sit for the exam. Every hour has to be signed by your sponsoring captain, Dutch, who sponsored 6 apprentices before you and lost count of how many finished. You keep the logbook in a Ziploc bag in your bib overalls so the salt spray doesn't ruin the pages. You learn the zone system. The coastline split into lobster management areas. and the trap limit of 800 per license inside your zone. A hard ceiling that took a fistfight at a public hearing in the 90s to get past and has held the fishery together ever since. You learn to read a chart plotter and a paper chart both because the electronics die exactly when you need them most. You take the written exam in a state office building smelling like carpet cleaner. 45 multiple-choice questions on regulations, gear specifications, and marine safety. And you fail it the first time by 2 questions. You take it again 3 months later and pass. Then comes the part nobody tells you about at the bait bucket stage. The zone you want to fish in is capped under a limited entry rule. 1 new license issued for every 2 that gets surrendered or retired, and the waiting list runs years deep in the popular zones. You put your name on the list the same week you pass the exam. You keep sterning for Dutch while you wait, banding claws, hauling gear, watching your own logbook hours pile up past the 1,000 you needed a year ago. A boat 2 slips down, loses power in a squall off the ledges, and the Coast Guard pulls 2 men out of 45-degree water alive because they were both wearing their survival suits, and neither one panicked. You buy your own suit that week even though you don't own a boat yet. 2 years after you put your name on the list, a call comes from the harbor master's office. A license opened up. Ready for level 4? Level 4, the captain. You're 25 and you own your license outright, your name stenciled on the transom of a used 36-foot lobster boat you financed for $81,000. Engine, hydraulics, electronics, and 800 traps you bought in stages over 3 seasons, because nobody buys a trap limit's worth of gear all at once. The first morning you run the boat alone out of the harbor before sunrise, no Dutch on the wheel behind you, just you, the radio, and the weather report you've read 4 times. You set your own gear pattern along the ledges you learned as a Sternman, string by string, buoy colors registered to your name at the harbor master's office so nobody can claim a trap that isn't theirs. A price crash hits in your 2nd year running your own boat, the dock price falling to $3 and change a pound in a summer glut. Half the boats in the harbor tying up early because the fuel bill costs more than the catch is worth. You keep running because the banknote doesn't care what the dock is paying, and you find out the hard way what it means to fish through a season that's losing money. You learn to run further offshore for the fall shed, when the lobsters molt and crawl deeper, chasing the water instead of waiting for it to come to you. You hire your first Sternman, a 17-year-old who reminds you exactly of yourself at that age, cutting bait with a knife too big for his hand. You stop checking the weather app and start reading the sky and the swell yourself, the way Dutch used to. Because by now, you trust your own read more than a 5-day forecast built for people who don't have to be on the water in it. You clear $90,000 in a strong year, and you clear almost nothing in a weak one. And the gap between those 2 numbers is the whole trade. You're the best boat in your string now, catching more per trap than half the harbor, and other captains start asking what bait you're running and where you're setting. That's when the offer comes. Level 5, the Highliner. You're 33, and a seafood dealer who buys half the harbor's catch offers you a standing contract, a guaranteed price floor in exchange for exclusive delivery of everything you haul, insulation against the price crashes that nearly sank you at level 4. You take it. You add a second boat the following year, a used 42-footer you crew with 2 Sternmen and run under a hired captain you trained yourself, a kid who apprenticed under you the same way you apprenticed under Dutch. You diversify into scalloping in the winter months when lobster season slows, a state-licensed dredge fishery with its own separate entry list you waited 3 years to get onto. You buy a bait contract directly from a herring processor instead of paying marked-up prices through a middleman, cutting your single biggest cost by nearly a third. The fishery around you keeps shrinking in one direction while your operation keeps growing in the other. Fewer boats on the water every year as older captains retire, and fewer young apprentices sign the logbook to replace them, because the waiting lists are long and the entry cost is high, and most people your age when you started never made it this far. You clear $210,000 across both boats in your best year, and you're the one other captains call when they need advice instead of the other way around. Then a processing company that's been quietly buying up boats and permits along the coast calls your dock and asks if you'd ever consider selling. Level 6, the exit. You're 42. The processing company isn't buying your boat because they want to run it themselves. They're buying your permits, your zone history, your bait contract, and the 800 trap tags registered to your name, because a permit with a clean history and a full trap allocation is worth more to them locked into their supply chain than any single boat could ever be worth on its own. You negotiate for 6 weeks. Your lawyer, a woman who's handled a dozen fishery buyouts up and down the coast, tells you the number they're offering is fair for a 2-boat operation with your catch history and your scalloping license bundled in. You sign at $410,000, boats, gear, permits, and the bait contract, all of it, at a table in a lawyer's office that smells nothing like a boat. You keep your captain's license active, even though you no longer own a hull to put it on. Your former Sternman, the one you trained the way Dutch trained you, buys your smaller boats separately at a price you set low on purpose, because somebody has to be standing on that stern in 20 years, cutting bait with a knife too big for his hand, same as you did, same as the whole trade has always worked. Here's the part nobody tells you at the bait bucket. A pound of lobster meat still runs $40 on a white tablecloth in Boston. The dock still pays $5 a pound for the same animal, hauled out of 45-degree water by somebody's numb hands. You did that math for 30 years, and then you stopped needing to. Somewhere on that same stretch of coast right now, a kid is standing in a rowboat, cutting herring into chunks with a knife too big for his hand, jamming the pieces into a mesh bag, and getting the slip knot wrong more often than right. He doesn't know about the apprenticeship logbook yet, or the zone waiting list, or what a price crash does to a banknote that doesn't care about the weather. He just knows the trap is heavy and the water is cold, and his grandfather is counting the rope coming in over the rail. He'll learn the rest. Your hands don't fully warm up in the winter anymore. 30 years of that water did that. You wouldn't give back a single season. The boat with your name on the transom isn't yours anymore, but somewhere out past the ledges, it's still hauling the same string of buoys, running the same water, under a captain who learned the trade standing exactly where you once stood.